sugarcane plantation. So all her life she's dealt with things that most people don't understand, basically seeking her out. So, I think we usually have more than our share of physical things happen to us.
Well, I guess that makes sense, because if she's, I guess, for lack of a better term, is sensitive to seeing, or at least
sensitive. I'll go with sensitive. I hesitate to call her psychic. Don't really like the term, because everybody and their dog, I can walk into any bar and say I'm a psychic, and just based on basic observation, I could probably con more than half the people in there. Right. That to me makes that whole claim unreliable. Which is why CSPR doesn't typically use psychics. At least we might use them. We might use someone that we know is sensitive, i.e. my wife, to point us in the right direction. But all of our evidence and all of our investigations do not center around that. We center around what we can gather as far as recordings, videos, and hard data that we can actually replicate or not replicate, as the case may be. So.
Right, and that's why I kind of use the word sensitive, because psychic is so different than just being aware. I don't know. A lot of people may disagree with me on that, but I think sensitive is an appropriate term. I would consider myself to be a lot that way when it comes to ghosts and whatnot, because I wouldn't call myself a psychic, because if I was a psychic, I'd be picking the lottery numbers for myself, or at least being able to call games good enough to where I could go find a bookie and quit my day job.
Well, yeah. I'll happily call her a sensitive. I, on the other hand, am not. I'm probably the least sensitive person that I know. The only time I get stuff happening to me is through bullheaded determination and from being too stupid to run out of the room when I probably ought to. So,
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, though, but you've still, by your bullheadedness, you've also kind of allowed yourself to be open to experience. So, I mean...
Yeah, that's an accurate assessment, yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at it, and a lot of people never have had any kind of experience, and they've been seeking it, but it never happens, And I know, here you are, you seem like a pretty much nuts and bolts almost kind of approach to the paranormal. So I find it interesting that you're still getting the experience, and maybe that's because you're one of your investigative partners is sensitive, and it seems to me that people that are sensitive are like lightning rods or like moth to a flame.
Well, I had experiences before my wife and I got together, so I don't know. I mean, I definitely can tell you we've gotten a lot more since she and I have been together, but I've had weird experiences for most of my life, so I can't say that it has anything to do with that or not. I am more of a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I like to say my wife is the finesse side of it. I'm more of a blunt instrument. I like to walk in and go, okay, what are we looking for? And my wife will walk in and she'll just let her instinct guide her. And that's great. That's wonderful. We don't report the thing. I don't stand around and go, what do you feel? I don't stand around and say, okay, she doesn't tell me I'm getting a little girl that's 6 years old and yada, yada, yada. She just kind of walks around the house and things happen all around her.
It does seem to be like people like that are lightning rods.
She definitely is. She definitely is.
Draws them.
And it's funny, she passed it on to both of my daughters. So that's Yeah, as the father of a teenager who has that kind of stuff happening, pity me. And I have a younger daughter also who seems to be just about the same. So yeah, it's exciting, interesting times in the Johnson household.
Do they ever go on investigations with you, or do you keep them away from that?
Well, my youngest is too young to go. She's 10, and a lot of stuff that happens during these things is just you don't want to expose a 10-year-old to that. Now my oldest is 19, and we've invited her. She can go with us. If next time we have an investigation come up, I'm definitely going to invite her to go because I'm actually very curious to see just how strong she is in comparison to her mother. So, it's having her go along would be kind of a twofold experiment for us. So, yeah.
So you talked about having your own experiences prior to meeting your wife. Were those all in your hometown there when you were looking into the legends?
Yeah, pretty much. Of course, you have to realize I lived in my hometown until I was 18 years old. And then after that, I moved to Los Angeles for a grand total of 2 years, and then moved back to my hometown for several years, and then I moved to where I live now, which is Austin. So, Austin, Kyle. So, yeah. I moved to Pittsburgh for about a year and a half, and then I came back here again. So I just can't seem to get out to Texas.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I've lived in Pittsburgh, and I'd want to go to Texas, too.
Well, I'll tell you, from the point of view of paranormal investigation, Pittsburgh is a much older area, and there's a lot more for me to goof with. However, now my hometown's also right next to Galveston, so there's a lot of stuff there for me to just sink my teeth into when I go. So, I mean, it seems like pretty much everywhere that I go, there's always something for me to get into.
Well, I think that is pretty much the case. I think pretty much anywhere people have lived and died, and for any period of time, there's something left behind there, some kind of energy or residue of living that's kind of that stays behind as a remnant.
Well, yeah, I have a theory about that, and granted, I mean, I know several people that share the same theory, but there's no proof behind it. This is just my own theory behind it. But see, there are cases where we all know about the cases where houses are haunted by people that died violent deaths, right?
Right.
And we all know that there are places where people died that are haunted also. But there are also cases where there's one very famous case where a house was actually haunted by somebody who wasn't dead. Family moved into a house and they started seeing this little girl, and there are so many different kinds of hauntings. This was what I like to call an echo. Basically what it was is the little girl would appear and act like she was playing with toys over and over and over and over again. Same place on the second floor of the house. So the woman that lived in the house started doing some digging, and she realized that one of the previous owners was still alive. And she was living in a nursing home, but she was still alive. So she contacted the person and asked her about it. And the old woman came and visited the house. And as she's walking through the house, she stopped right where that little girl was. And she said, "Right there is where I used to play when I was a child." And the old woman pulled out a photograph of herself, and it was the ghost that they were seeing. Now, what does that mean? Your body is basically a large chemical battery, okay? You put off an energy field around you. It's been measured, and that can be duplicated by anybody who cares to try it, but there is an electric field that is around your body. What has also been measured and duplicated is that the stronger the emotions that you feel, the larger and more intense that field becomes. That's why some people can't wear a battery-driven watch. My mom can't wear one. The darn things run backwards. But there are a lot of people that can't wear a battery-driven wristwatch because they'll stop, they'll run backwards, they won't run properly. And it has to do with their body's electrical signature. It has to do with the amount of energy coming off of them. So my theory is that no matter what the emotion is, if it's fear, hate, pain, love, joy, whatever, the more intense the emotion, the higher the amount of energy that you give off, and that energy can leave a scar or leave a stain or a mark of some kind on the wood, the brick, the steel, whatever it is that you're inside. And that's kind of what you're seeing is basically a recording in that particular type of haunting. And to me, that's in my mind, that's the only real explanation for it. And I'm open to anybody else's explanation. That's just all I've been able to come up with. But it would certainly explain why there are cases of places that are haunted by people that aren't even dead yet.
Well, and I've definitely heard stories similar to that before. Actually, I had a friend relate to me a story that he grew up in his house or whatever, and he had some brothers, and they'd fight and whatever. And he was the youngest, and when they all moved out, and he was there alone at night, he would actually hear arguments that they had as children.
Right.
So
it's the same kind of thing. It's the same kind of thing.
You've got, like you said, we are chemical, kind of like chemical batteries. So that emanation can be recorded, I would think, in locations. I don't know why they haven't really been able to duplicate that yet, because it seems like if you found the right substance, you could probably make that happen. Or maybe they have, and I'm just unaware of it.
Well, I can tell you this. In my experience, when you start dealing with things that are like this, it's more of a case of not necessarily that they haven't, but maybe it's that they don't really. It's more that they don't really want to know. Because think about this. If you're grounded in science, firmly grounded in science, and you say, I believe I can prove the existence of ghosts. You just lost credibility, pal. That's something that nobody really wants to deal with. And on top of that, think about all the things that you know in your life as a positive. This is absolutely true. What if something comes along and makes you start questioning that? A lot of people can't handle that kind of thing. I mean, people like you and me, yeah, we make our lives questioning things. We make our lives going, okay, this is what I have been able to figure out from my own research, from my own decisions and my own deductions. If something else comes along and throws a monkey wrench into that, usually we're pretty good about saying, okay, let's rethink. But think about the average person. You throw a monkey wrench in it, and they backpedal, and they say, no, that can't be right, and then they stick their fingers in their ears and go, la, 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 as they walk away. So, proving, there's an old saying, you can't really prove the existence of ghosts to anybody. I have just about as much chance of proving the existence of ghosts to a non-believer as I do proving the existence of God to an agnostic. It comes down to a choice. You have to want to believe in it, and you have to choose to believe in it. Choose whether or not you're going to, based on your own experience. So, based on my experience, yeah, I believe in ghosts. Based on my own experience, believe in UFOs too. Actually, I used to believe pro wrestling was real, so that doesn't really count. But
Well,
yeah.